Alright, what's up guys? My name is Zach, and today I am driving a 2005 Saturn Vue V6. Up front is a 3.5 liter V6, and down below is a 5-speed automatic transmission. Now, I am super excited to be driving this Saturn Vue for two reasons. First of all, I always enjoy driving Saturns because they're a company that no longer exists. And so there are only fewer and fewer examples on the streets with every passing year. The second reason is the fact that this is the V6. I have not reviewed a V6 Saturn Vue, and this is a very special V6. So let's hop right into it. But if you would like to submit your own vehicle and have it reviewed here on the channel, you can head on over to my website, zackpradel.com/submit. It's a quick and easy submission form. It takes under a minute to fill out, and I come out to you. And if you'd like to see all my videos weeks or sometimes months in advance, you can head on over to my Patreon for only $5 a month. But let's get back to that V6 under the hood, the whole reason why we're doing this video. Well, Saturn didn't have a V6 of their own that they wanted to put into the Vue. So they rang up a friend and asked if they could use theirs. That friend? Honda. This is a 3.5 liter V6 from Honda that you would have seen in the Honda Accord, the Honda Odyssey, Honda Ridgeline. It's the J35, which is still in production here today. It's an incredibly reliable engine. It makes good power, and it is just simply lovely. However, if you notice, the Saturn engineers had to really work around the fact that it was a Honda engine and gave it an obscenely long and awkward intake from the air intake to the air box. So it does look kind of wonky shoved in there, but that's how it came from the factory. Now, you could also get a 4-cylinder in the Saturn Vue, and we've reviewed those before. It's a 2.2 liter Ecotec. It's whatever. This is the bee's knees, and this is the same engine that came in the Saturn Vue Redline, just without all of the flashy bits around it. Like I said, paired to it is a 5-speed automatic transmission. It does have a torque converter issue. So Saturn Vues from this era with the 5-speed have a known torque converter issue. Unfortunately, that's just reality of these transmissions. Last but not least, this particular Saturn Vue is front-wheel drive. However, you could find them with the V6 in all-wheel drive, if that's something that you wanted. How does it feel to drive the Saturn Vue V6? Well, it actually drives pretty nice. The suspension isn't anything to brag about. However, the V6 is torquey and powerful and wonderful. It absolutely transforms this vehicle into something of note rather than an afterthought. I never really loved the Saturn Vue with the 4-cylinder, but the 6-cylinder makes all the difference. Visibility is decent. You do have relatively thick A-pillars, but not the end of the world. And you have pretty big windows, so I think at the end of the day, it's relatively passable. With that stuff out of the way, let's talk about the interior. Well, in front of me, I have 4 gauges. Off to the left is my fuel and speedometer, and off to the right is my tachometer and coolant temperature. That's it, clean, easy, and simple. On the steering wheel, we do have cruise control, which is at the center at the very bottom. A very, very weird place to put the cruise control, but at least it has it at the end of the day. Off to the left, we do have a climate control vent, and moving out of the door, we have the latch to get in and out, and the power locks. Moving into the center, we get 2 climate control vents, our hazard switch, gauge dimmer switch, and fog light switch, as well as a little Vue logo here. I like that little touch. Aftermarket radio, and down below we have the climate controls. We do have AC, which is working here today, which I am very appreciative of. But temperature off to the left, fan speed in the center, and where to send it off to the right. We do get a little bit of cubby space, as well as a 12-volt outlet off to the right. Power mirrors off to the left, and then we have our power windows and locking in the center surrounding the shifter. And then down below, we do have cup holders, so we'll do a big friggin' bottle test, and if you remove the lining, you can make it pass. It's not very happy about it, but at the end of the day, that is a pass. Then we do get a little center console and the seats. The seats are a mix of leather and cloth. They kind of look like dentist office seats, at least in terms of the pattern. However, they are comfortable, but they are manual, so take what you can get. However, speaking of seats, we do have back seats, so let's go do a back seat review. All right, in the back of the Saturn Vue, and a couple of things to note. First of all, knee room good, headroom good. I'm 5'11", not a small guy. I have plenty of space up above my head and a relatively good amount of space back here. I also forgot to mention that this passenger seat can be folded all the way forward and used as a table because there's actually a hard plastic back here. You also saw this in some Pontiac products. But overall, this is actually a comfortable and nice place to be. One of the best back seats of any Saturn product up to this point, because this was the first Saturn SUV. They had station wagons, coupes, and sedans, but not SUVs. So that is really, really nice. The seats, again, are this like half leather, half other material. Still look like dentist office seats, but interestingly, this third seatbelt comes out of the middle here. Kind of a weird look. However, we have more weirdness once we pop the trunk on the Saturn Vue. Right around the back of the Saturn Vue, one simple handle down here to pull it up, and we do have some storage. Now, not to spoil anything, but roll this back over. We do have an all-weather floor mat that actually says Saturn on it. Very cool to see that, especially because obviously they don't make it anymore. We do have storage over here for the jack, and according to the owner, you can fit a gallon of milk on either side. So if you need to take 2 gallons of milk somewhere, you are in luck. However, as you saw with the mat folded up, you do get this that you could pull up, and then this, and then these fold out like so. Fold the arms out, and now you have a basket in the back of your Saturn Vue. This is really nice for small objects, or maybe like, you know, if you have a basketball or soccer ball back here, you don't want it rolling all the way around. You could put different things in different spots. If you have the eggs, you might want to put the eggs back here and then everything else over there. It just gives you some different dividers. This is, again, still where Saturn was doing their own thing. This wasn't on any other GM product. This was just for Saturn. So very, very cool, very forward thinking, and I love that it says the cargo organizer. This cargo organizer can help keep small light items in place during sharp turns or quick starts and stops, but is not designed to retain them during off-road use or a crash. See the owner's manual. Very, very cool to see that. And then just to take it down, fold that in, that folds down. There you go. No one will ever know that you have a cargo divider. Not that it's important that someone would know that, but still. Now we got to talk about the looks, and this is kind of the downside just because it does have that V6, it does make more power, it's a lot better for powertrain, but the exterior still looks boring. Now the Saturn Vue Redline had a more interesting body kit and wheels and things like that. I don't think the Vue is the ugliest thing in the world. Definitely at the same time you could buy the Pontiac Aztek, so I think that was kind of stealing the spotlight of ugliness. This ain't so bad. I don't mind it, and I find it kind of charming every time I still see a Saturn on the road because I know that that car has fought tooth and nail over the last 20 years to stay on the road today. With all of that being said, let's get on to my final thoughts. What do I think driving a Saturn Vue with the Honda V6? Well, this makes this car way, way better. I historically have not been a fan of the 4-cylinder Saturn Vue, especially with the manual. I was so excited to drive a manual Saturn Vue. Come to find out, the manual transmission feels terrible, the 4-cylinder was gutless, and it just wasn't fun. This kind of makes up for that. The V6 is wonderful, and it's going to be reliable, and there's going to be parts availability. There's tons of modifications you could do to a J-Series. They sell a supercharger kit. If you wanted to supercharge this, boy, you could do it. You could also pull parts out of the junkyard from a 2024 Honda Odyssey and use them on your own engine. That is a huge benefit, especially given the fact that Saturn doesn't exist anymore. This is one of the few Saturn engines that actually will have support in the modern era. The 1.9 liter from the S series isn't going to get that support because it was just made for Saturn and they are out of business. So Saturn as a whole happened in 3 phases. Phase 1 was the S series. Those are the most iconic Saturns. Those are the originals. They had the 1.9 liter, either single overhead cam or dual overhead cam. Those were completely bespoke vehicles. They did not share any parts with the rest of GM. This is part of phase 2. We also saw the Saturn Ion and the L series in this phase, where you started to see more GM influence. Some buttons and dials in here were either shared with GMC and Pontiacs or overseas Opel. And then phase 3 was the end of Saturn's life, where they were just blatant rebadging badges of other GM products. There was little to no thought put into them. They would swap the badges and go home, like the Saturn Relay or the Saturn Outlook. Those were just rebadged. So I think phase 2, this phase, is still a good phase to own, because it does feel special. Seeing that Saturn badge, this does look different than any other vehicle that GM was making. Although it shares some underpinnings, it still has a unique identity. It still has a unique feel. It also has that awesome V6 under the hood. This is one of the very rare instances where Honda worked with GM besides the modern Prologue and Blazer EV. That's a really cool partnership that they had, and something that you wouldn't expect at all. You could drive this to Honda meet and say, yeah, I fit in. I can go to Honda meet, and you can also go to Saturn Nationals. You can also go to a GM meet. It can live that dual life because of that engine under the hood. This is a very special car. This is a car that only lasted for a very short amount of time, and this to me was still when Saturn had some very cool personality. It might have gone out by the end of their run, but in 2005, they still had a slight smirk at the corner of their lips. I hope you guys enjoyed the video. Huge thank you to Kevin for letting me borrow his Saturn Vue for today's video. Kevin has been absolutely wonderful. This is the 4th car from him that I have reviewed. I've known him for several years, and I always appreciate him having me up to film his vehicles. But I hope you guys enjoyed the video. Don't forget to rate the video, comment on the video, and subscribe if you really liked it. Take care, guys.